The great white shark sees it first, a shadow moving beneath the surface, impossibly large, impossibly fast. The shark has ruled these waters for millions of years. It has no natural predators. Nothing hunts a great white shark. Until now. The orca strikes from below, ramming the shark with enough force to flip it completely upside down. And then something strange happens. The shark stops moving. It doesn't thrash, doesn't fight, doesn't swim away. It just hangs there in the water, completely paralyzed, as if someone hit a power switch and turned it off. The orca holds the shark in this position for 15 minutes. 15 minutes of absolute stillness while the shark suffocates, unable to move water through its gills. When it's finally dead, the orca does something even stranger. It doesn't eat the whole shark. It makes a single surgical incision along the belly, removes only the liver, an organ the size of a beach ball packed with fats and nutrients, and lets the rest of the carcass sink into the darkness. Within hours, every great white shark within 100 miles has vanished. An apex predator that survived for millions of years is fleeing from something more dangerous, something smarter, something that hunts with a precision that seems almost surgical. So here's the question that reveals everything about ocean hierarchy. What makes an orca so dominant that it can paralyze a great white shark, like turning off a machine, terrify entire populations of apex predators into fleeing, and rule every ocean on Earth without a single natural enemy? Because when you understand the answer, you realize that the orca isn't just another apex predator competing for the top spot. It's operating on a completely different level, a level where intelligence, culture, and coordination combine into something the ocean has never seen before. And once you see how they became the absolute boss, you'll understand why nothing in the ocean, not the great white, not the saltwater crocodile, not even the sperm whale, can challenge them. Off the coast of Patagonia, a 6-ton animal is doing something that should be impossible. It's throwing itself onto a beach. The orca accelerates to full speed, building momentum as it approaches the shore. At the last second, it rides a wave right up onto the sand, its massive body sliding across the beach like a missile. There's a sea lion pup on the shore, completely unaware. The orca's jaws snap shut around it, and then comes the part that seems suicidal. The orca is now stranded on land, tons of muscle and blubber pressing down under its own weight, organs at risk of being crushed, body temperature rising rapidly in the sun. One wrong move and this apex predator becomes a beached victim, suffocating under its own mass. But the orca doesn't panic. It thrashes side to side with calculated precision, using each movement to inch back toward the water. 30 seconds later, it slides back into the ocean, sea lion in its jaws, as if it had just done the most natural thing in the world. Here's what makes this the key to understanding orca dominance. Only this specific group of orcas does this. Orcas in other parts of the world, even those that hunt the exact same prey, never beach themselves. They use completely different strategies. This isn't instinct. Instinct is hardwired, universal across a species. This is something that separates orcas from every other apex predator in the ocean. This is culture. And culture is what makes orcas the absolute boss. Because when a great white shark hunts, it relies on the same strategy its ancestors used millions of years ago. Speed, surprise, that devastating bite. It's perfected over evolutionary time, but it's locked in. A great white can't suddenly decide to hunt differently. It can't learn a new technique and teach it to its offspring. It hunts the way its DNA tells it to hunt. The same is true for every other ocean predator. Saltwater crocodiles use the same ambush tactics they've used for millennia. Giant squid hunt with the same tentacle strikes their species has always used. Tiger sharks patrol and scavenge using strategies hardwired into their biology. But orcas learn. They innovate. They teach. And most importantly, they refine techniques over generations, constantly improving, constantly adapting to new prey, new environments, new challenges. That beaching behavior in Patagonia, it was invented. Some orca, decades or maybe centuries ago, figured out that sea lions on shore were vulnerable. It tried beaching itself, probably clumsily, probably dangerously, but it worked. And that orca taught the technique to its offspring. Those offspring refined it, taught it to their young, and now it's a cultural tradition passed down through generations with the precision of a surgical procedure. This is what makes orcas fundamentally different from every other predator. They don't just evolve over millions of years. They innovate over decades. And that means they can adapt to hunt prey that other predators can't even attempt. In Antarctica, orcas faced a problem. Seals resting on ice floes, completely safe from anything swimming below. Any other predator would give up. The seals are out of reach. Evolution hasn't equipped sharks or leopard seals or any other Antarctic predator with a solution. But orcas solved it. Researchers watched as a pod of orcas dove beneath an ice floe where a seal was resting. 4 orcas swam in perfect formation, matching speed and depth exactly. Then on some signal humans couldn't detect, they surfaced simultaneously, creating a wave that washed over the ice and knocked the seal into the water. Think about what that requires. Understanding physics, that synchronized movement creates waves. Understanding cooperation, that all 4 orcas must act at exactly the same moment. Understanding cause and effect, that this specific coordinated action produces a specific result. This is physics being weaponized by animals that understand it well enough to execute it flawlessly in the field. And here's what makes this truly remarkable. They don't do this everywhere. Only Antarctic orcas use wave washing. Orcas in Norway use carousel feeding, where they circle herring schools into tight balls and stun them with tail slaps. Orcas in Alaska herd salmon into shallow bays and trap them. Orcas in New Zealand have learned to steal fish directly from fishing lines without getting hooked. Every region has different techniques. Every pod has different traditions. And all of these are taught, practiced, and refined through cultural transmission. This is why orcas are the absolute boss. While other apex predators are limited by their evolutionary programming, orcas are limited only by what they can learn. And they can learn to hunt anything. But cultural hunting techniques are just the beginning of orca dominance. Because what really makes them the boss isn't just that they can learn, it's what they've learned to do to other apex predators. The great white shark that got flipped upside down and paralyzed. That's called tonic immobility. When sharks are inverted, they enter a catatonic state where they can't move, can't fight back, can't escape. It's a biological quirk of shark physiology, and somehow orcas figured it out. No one knows how they discovered this. Maybe an orca accidentally flipped a shark during a hunt and noticed it stopped fighting. Maybe it was trial and error over many attempts. But however it happened, orcas learned that flipping a shark upside down turns one of the ocean's most dangerous predators into a helpless victim. And they didn't just learn it, they perfected it. They refined the technique over generations until it became surgical in its precision. Off the coast of South Africa, 2 male orcas named Port and Starboard have been systematically hunting great white sharks since 2017. They don't fight the sharks head-on, they don't risk injury from those serrated teeth. They simply flip them, hold them inverted until they suffocate, then make a single precise incision to extract the liver, the most nutrient-dense organ in the shark's body. It's efficient, it's calculated, it's a technique so effective that great white sharks, animals that have survived for millions of years as apex predators, have no defense against it. And here's what really demonstrates orca dominance. After Port and Starboard moved into an area, the great whites didn't just leave temporarily. They abandoned the region entirely. Entire aggregation sites that hosted dozens of sharks became empty. Some sharks altered their migration patterns to avoid areas where these 2 orcas hunt. Think about what this means. An apex predator that's ruled the oceans for millions of years is so terrified of orcas that it's changing its behavior patterns established over evolutionary time. Great whites aren't just avoiding a single orca. They're reorganizing their entire existence around the threat orcas represent. And this pattern repeats across every ocean. Where orcas hunt, apex predators flee or adapt their behavior to avoid them. In Alaska, sea otters, themselves apex predators of invertebrates, spend more time in shallow kelp forests, where orcas can't easily maneuver. In California, elephant seals haul out on beaches earlier in the season to avoid orca hunting periods. In the Southern Ocean, even leopard seals, powerful predators that hunt penguins and smaller seals, become cautious and defensive when orcas are nearby. The ocean's food web isn't organized by size, bite force, or evolutionary age. It's organized by one simple rule. Orcas are at the top, and everything else adjusts its behavior accordingly. But flipping sharks and terrorizing great whites only explains part of orcas' dominance. Because what makes them truly unstoppable isn't just individual techniques, it's how they coordinate as a group. When a pod of orcas hunts, they're not acting as individuals who happen to be in the same place. They're acting as a single coordinated unit, each member playing a specific role, communicating constantly, adjusting strategy in real time based on what's working and what's not. In Norway, researchers documented orcas using carousel feeding to hunt herring. Here's how it works. The pod locates a school of herring, then begins swimming in circles around it. The orcas gradually tighten the circle, compressing thousands of fish into a dense, panicking ball. Then they take turns. One orca peels away from the circle, swims to the surface, and slaps the ball of fish with its tail, a strike powerful enough to stun or kill dozens at once. While that orca feeds on stunned fish, another takes position to deliver the next tail slap. It's systematic. It's organized. It's a coordinated attack that maximizes efficiency while minimizing risk to each orca. And here's what makes this level of coordination possible. Orca communication is among the most sophisticated in the animal kingdom. Orcas produce a complex array of clicks, whistles, and calls. But these aren't just random sounds. Each pod has its own dialect, a unique set of calls that members use to coordinate hunts, maintain social bonds, and navigate their environment. These calls can travel for miles underwater, allowing orcas to stay in contact even when separated. But it goes deeper than that. Orcas use echolocation, the same biological sonar that other toothed whales use, but with a level of precision that's almost unbelievable. They produce rapid clicks that bounce off objects in the water and return as echoes. By interpreting these echoes, orcas can see in complete darkness, detect fish hiding in kelp forests, and determine the internal anatomy of prey. Some researchers believe orcas can use echolocation so precisely that they can tell if a fish has a swim bladder or not, information that tells them whether the fish is worth pursuing. Others suggest orcas can actually see inside prey, identifying organs, bone structure, and even whether an animal is pregnant. This gives them an advantage no other predator possesses: perfect information. While a shark hunts using smell and vibration, a crocodile relies on vision and pressure sensors. Orcas can map their entire environment in 3 dimensions using sound alone. They know exactly where prey is, exactly how it's moving, exactly when to strike. And when you combine this sensory advantage with coordinated group tactics, you get something unprecedented. A predator that operates more like a military unit than an animal following instinct. But here's where orca dominance becomes truly extraordinary, because it's not just that they can hunt anything, coordinate perfectly, and terrify other apex predators. It's that they choose what to hunt based on cultural traditions that have nothing to do with biology. In the Pacific Northwest, there are 2 distinct orca populations living in the same waters: residents and transients. Resident orcas eat primarily fish, especially salmon. Transient orcas, also called Biggs orcas, hunt marine mammals like seals, sea lions, and even other whales. These 2 populations encounter each other regularly. They live in the same ocean, swim through the same territories, and have access to the same prey. But they never interbreed. They never hunt together. They don't even use the same vocalizations. They have different dialects, different social structures, and different hunting techniques. They're genetically similar enough to interbreed, but culturally different enough that they don't. Think about what this means. Biology says these orcas could mate and produce viable offspring. But culture, learned behavior passed down through generations, creates a barrier as strong as if they were different species entirely. This is dominance through culture. Resident orcas could hunt seals if they wanted to. They have the physical capability, the intelligence, the coordination. But they don't, because their culture says they eat fish. Transient orcas could eat salmon, but they don't because their culture focuses on marine mammals, and this cultural specialization makes them even more effective. A resident orca pod has spent generations refining techniques for hunting salmon, how to locate schools, how to herd them into bays. and how to stun them with tail slaps. A transient pod has perfected strategies for hunting seals, how to approach silently, how to create waves to wash them off ice, and how to coordinate attacks on dangerous prey. Each cultural group is the absolute boss of its specific niche. And because these cultural traditions are taught and refined over generations, they become more sophisticated with time. This is evolution on steroids. While other species wait millions of years for beneficial mutations, orcas improve their hunting effectiveness in decades through cultural innovation. But all of this, the cultural hunting techniques, the dominance over apex predators, the sophisticated coordination, still doesn't fully explain why orcas are the absolute boss. Because there's one more piece of evidence that reveals just how intelligent they are. They choose not to hunt us. Think about that. Orcas have shared the ocean with humans for thousands of years. They've encountered countless swimmers, divers, surfers, and fishermen. They could kill any of us in seconds. We're slower than seals, less agile than fish, completely defenseless in water. But there has never been a confirmed fatal attack by a wild orca on a human. Not one, not ever. This isn't because orcas don't notice us. It's not because we're too small or too strange. Orcas have learned to hunt prey far stranger than humans. They've adapted to hunt animals their ancestors never encountered. So why spare us? Some researchers believe we're not part of their cultural diet. Their mothers and grandmothers never taught them that humans are food, so we don't register as prey. To an orca, we might be just another strange creature in the ocean, not fish, not seal, not whale. Just wrong. But other researchers think it's something more calculated. They think orcas are smart enough to understand cause and effect on a scale that goes beyond immediate consequences. There's a story from the Pacific Northwest that might explain it. In the early 1900s, whalers hunted orcas aggressively, killing them for their oil and because they competed with commercial fishing. One particular orca, a large male, was shot but survived. Researchers later identified him by his scars and tracked him for years. He never approached a boat again. Not once. He would surface at a distance, observe, then dive and disappear. He learned that boats meant danger. And apparently, he taught that wariness to his pod, because other members began avoiding boats the same way. That's not instinct. That's learning. That's culture adapting to threat in real time. So maybe orcas don't hunt us because they understand something terrifying. We're dangerous in ways that go beyond physical threat. We have boats. We have weapons. We have the ability to hold grudges and hunt back, not with teeth and strength, but with technology that can wipe out entire populations. And orcas, with their massive brains and cultural knowledge and ability to strategize multiple moves ahead, have apparently decided that attacking humans isn't worth the risk, which means the absolute boss of the sea is consciously choosing to leave us alone. Not because it can't kill us, it absolutely can, but because it's smart enough to understand that it shouldn't. That's not instinct. That's strategic thinking. That's an animal looking at another species and making a calculated decision based on long-term consequences. And that might be the most powerful evidence of orca intelligence we have, because it means they're not just following programming. They're making choices based on assessment of risk, evaluation of consequences, and understanding of complex cause and effect relationships that extend across time. When Dr. Ingrid Visser had that orca stop 3 feet away and look at her, she wasn't being spared by chance. That orca was making a decision. It was assessing her, evaluating whether she was prey or threat or something else entirely, and it chose to swim away. You weren't spared by luck. You were spared by choice. And the most powerful predator in the ocean has been making that choice over and over again every single day for thousands of years. This is what makes orcas the absolute boss. Not just physical dominance, but cognitive dominance. Not just the ability to kill, but the intelligence to choose when killing is worth it and when it's not. Every other apex predator operates on instinct refined over millions of years of evolution. Great whites hunt because that's what their DNA tells them to do. Saltwater crocodiles ambush because evolution programmed them for ambush. Giant squid strike with tentacles because that's the strategy encoded in their biology. But orcas assess, they evaluate, they learn, they teach, they innovate. and they make strategic decisions that account for long-term consequences. This is dominance on a completely different level. This is an animal that's not just at the top of the food chain, it's operating on a different plane of existence from every other predator in the ocean. So why is the orca the absolute boss of the sea? It's not because they're the biggest. Blue whales are bigger. It's not because they have the strongest bite. Crocodiles bite harder. It's not because they're the fastest. Marlins are faster. It's because they're the only apex predator that combines physical capability with cultural innovation, sophisticated coordination with strategic intelligence, hunting prowess with the ability to consciously choose when and how to use that prowess. Orcas dominate the ocean not through brute force alone, but through intelligence that allows them to adapt faster than evolution, coordinate better than any other predator, and make strategic decisions that account for consequences other animals can't even perceive. They've learned to paralyze great white sharks by exploiting a biological quirk no other predator knew existed. They've invented hunting techniques like wave washing and intentional beaching that require understanding of physics. They've developed cultural traditions so distinct that populations in the same waters don't interbreed. And they've made the strategic decision to leave humans alone despite being fully capable of hunting us. This is what absolute dominance looks like. Not an animal competing for the top spot, but an animal operating on a level so far above the competition that nothing else even comes close. The great white shark fleeing in terror isn't running from a bigger predator. It's running from something smarter, something that can learn its weaknesses and exploit them with surgical precision. The seal on the ice floe isn't being killed by a stronger hunter. It's being killed by a coordinated team that understands physics well enough to weaponize it. And when you're in the water and an orca swims past you without incident, you're not being ignored by a mindless predator. You're being consciously spared by an intelligence that's evaluated you, assessed the consequences, and made a strategic choice. The orca isn't just the absolute boss of the sea because it can kill anything. It's the absolute boss because it's smart enough to know when it should and when it shouldn't. And that combination of power and intelligence, hunting prowess and strategic thinking, physical dominance and cultural sophistication has made the orca untouchable, unchallenged, the undisputed ruler of every ocean on Earth, not through evolution alone, but through culture, innovation, and intelligence that continues to advance with every generation. That's why the orca is the absolute boss of the sea. And that's why nothing, not the great white, not the sperm whale, not even humans can challenge that position.